I think it's something like over 50% of women aged 18 to 35 experience burnout at some point. And the reality is, if you're an ambitious woman or a woman of color, you're going to feel these at even higher rates because we have really high standards for what we want in our lives, which results in a lot of times us doing a lot, not taking care of ourselves, and then getting a little confused why we've lost our spark. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Too Smart for This. It's your girl. It's me. It's Alexis. And I'm back from my bed here to chit chat. And we're talking about something that I was really dealing with this year. Okay, we're talking about burnout and how I recognized I was burnt out for the second time, and how I overcame it, and how I want you guys to be preventing yourselves from overcoming burnout, which has become so normalized. But before we get into that, thank you all so much to everyone who's been subscribing to our Substack. I'm really, really excited about this, and investing in longer form content is something that is really, really important to me, and I'm hoping that you guys love it just as much as I do. I really love the community we've built here, and expanding it is super important to me. And a lot of the way we've built our show and grown our show organically has just been from you all telling your friends about it. I have so many people who've come to me and said, like, oh, my friend put me on to your podcast or whatever. And word of mouth really is the best way to grow the show, which is why we are running a sort of exclusive word of mouth sale for the Labor Day weekend. So essentially for Labor Day weekend, what I'm going to do is, if you sign up for the Substack / the Two Collective emails, you will be getting a 20% off discount to use for the weekend. So this is just a little exclusive thank you for all of our listeners, for those who subscribe, and for those who are, excited about sharing the magic of this show as well as the robes. But essentially, this is a great little sale for you all. I know how much the people who love the robes are so obsessed and always coming back for them. And so they love to share them with their friends, and everybody put each other on and stuff like that. So for this weekend only, that is going to be the discount. With all that said, let's get into the tea. So basically, I recognized I was burnt out the first time because I just was going through the motions. And the second time, someone basically had to tell me. But I feel like burnout kind of looks like this, all right? So you wake up in the morning to the sound of your Apple alarm clock. And the sound you've heard so many times that it actually sparks rage in you, and not so much makes you want to open your eyes, but actually ignites this feeling of dread in your soul where you're like, the only reprieve I have right now, which is sleep, is ending. And I have to face the world. And I do not want to do that under any circumstances. And so you snooze the alarm to try to go back to that safety where you weren't thinking, where you were asleep. And guess what? Anxiety starts, and the unwavering fear of not looking good at work, being late, or the never-ending list of things that you should be doing is what gets you out of bed and takes you into the bathroom where you start your day, brushing your teeth, getting ready, and you start to count all the things that are going wrong every day. You're like, oh, I'm out of toothpaste. My hair's not coming out right. I don't like I have another pimple. Great. It's time to go to work. Oh, I missed the train by 30 seconds. And you're like, damn. Every day you just keep counting everything that's going wrong. You get to the office, you find that coworker you can complain to all day. You are not really all there, but you go on autopilot to complete the tasks that you're pretty good at. So nobody really notices that you're not doing well because you're still showing up. And you surprise yourself with how you're able to turn on when you have to, but then you still go back to feeling this sense of inexplicable disinterest with the things that you once thought were everything you wanted. And you get home and nothing really is inspiring to you, and you don't feel like cooking. Why would you cook? Why would you work out? Why would you do any of that? So you order DoorDash with the $30 you definitely shouldn't be spending on a meal that inevitably doesn't taste that great, and there's nothing that you want to do, so you turn on trashy reality TV, or you start to numb your mind with a glass of wine or weed, and maybe both, and TV for sure, just not paying attention to the realities of your life, and go back to sleep, which is the only place where you really feel like comfortable right now. I mean, I found myself while I was burnt out looking forward to going to bed so early every day, and it wasn't this like fun grandma girl go to sleep early type of vibe. It was, I am experiencing dread and all I want to do is go to bed because there's nothing for me in being awake. And at some point, you might feel this way. You might have felt it already in your life. You might be on your way there, and you might be experiencing it full-fledged right now. And that's because I think it's something like over 50% of women aged 18 to 35 feel this way or experience burnout at some point, opposed to 37% of men, by the way. And the reality is, if you're an ambitious woman or a woman of color, you're going to feel these at even higher rates because we have really high standards for what we want in our lives, and we have really high expectations for ourselves, which results in a lot of times us doing a lot, not taking care of ourselves, and then getting a little confused why we've lost our spark. So your capacity to be inspired can and will be tested because you have a lot of brilliance in you that you want to let out, and it all can come out, and you can technically have it all, and maybe not all at once, maybe you can have it all at once, but I know you definitely cannot have it if you don't have 4 things: play, priorities, policies, and planning. So today I want to talk to you about all 4 of these things and how they can help you overcome burnout as well as prevent burnout in your life. And I fear that I might be the perfect person to explain this to you because I've been burnt out twice in the last 4 years. So let's get started on defining the following 4 things and helping you integrate them into your life. The first thing, and the reason it's first is because for most people it's last, but it's very important that it's first in this situation because this is really what's going to help you heal, and that's play. And I think you can also equate play to things like rest, to relaxation, to pampering. If we go back to my 4 types of rest, all of that can be play if you want it to be. And so I feel like when I was first experiencing this like recognition I had burnout, this is about 2-ish months ago, the first prescription that my consultant, Michelle, gave me was to rest and to not consume any more nonfiction, like educational content, because I was someone who consumed that almost exclusively to the point where it was hard for me to think, oh, let me just listen to music on my walk instead of a informative podcast. Or when I'm watching TV, I want to watch something that's stimulating or a documentary or something as opposed to something like reality TV sometimes. And so I didn't want to be on social media because I was like, oh, like I should be doing something more productive with my time. You need a little bit of smooth brain stuff sometimes. Sometimes you need to listen to the pop culture podcast on your way home from work instead of what the markets are doing, even though you spent all day managing the markets because you're an investment banker. Like, let's be serious, okay? Like, we need to really relax sometimes and create space for that. Because when we don't do that, realistically, you are filling your brain with information on how you could be improving, optimizing, etc. If you wake up in the morning, listen to a health podcast, and are consuming information online about health all day while you're also at work, like it's creating all of these mental to-do lists in your brain as opposed to maybe giving you a little bit of like reprieve, maybe a little bit of relaxation or a laugh or some endorphins because you're listening to 2 really funny people talk on a mic once instead of the market update. And so rest and play and inspiration come when you least expect it. They don't always come when you're trying to synthesize new information all the time or optimize your health and wellness by being rigid with how you spend your time. You gotta have a little more fun. And that's something that can feel, especially when you're in a dark place like burnout, it can feel like it's not allowed for you to want to relax even more because you are half the time not even showing up to your basic needs. But in reality, it's done wonders for me to stop thinking about everything I could be doing and taking in all that new nonfiction information and creating more space for fun and for relaxation and for play in my life. And so the first thing you have to do with burnout is rest a little bit and have a little fun, okay? And stop consuming everything. Next up is priorities. Priorities are hard, okay? Because when you're an ambitious person, you want to do everything, myself included. And so prioritizing is like literally a skill that is hell to have to experience. But when you realize that you've been prioritizing things that you said you weren't going to prioritize, it's a little bit of a like kick to your identity. And if you listen to last week's episode that was all about how your identity informs your confidence and your sense of self, you'll know that it's very important for us to have strong senses of our identities, because when we don't, then we feel a lack of confidence, a lack of security, and we can't show up the way we want to show up. Now, when it comes to your priorities, this is something you get to really redefine, especially if you've just been experiencing burnout, because you can say, hold on, whatever I was just doing in my life wasn't working for me. So now it's time for me to reevaluate. And reevaluation for me kind of starts with that identity question, which is, what type of person are you? And how do you want to be seen or show up as in the world? Like when you leave the room, how do you want people to be talking about you? That's the first question I want you to ask yourself here. And this can feel like a really big question sometimes, but just ask yourself, like, in the next year, in the next few months, it doesn't have to be forever, but right now, how do you want to be defined? And what type of person do you want to show up as? And how do you want your days to look to feel the most generative? So that's the first question to ask. But the second is to delegate, defer, or delete the things in your life that aren't working anymore. And that's going to require you to take an audit of your life and the time that you've been spending on things, the way you've been acting, and really think critically about whether or not that is adhering to that identity that you said that you wanted to embody. And so for me, this looks like going through everything I do in my business and literally writing everything out that I do as an influencer, that I do as a content creator, and that I do as a business owner, and even everything I do to take care of myself, everything that I do with my friends, and everything I do for my school stuff. And I sat down, I wrote every little task and everything out. And I went through and I was like, what can I no longer do? What can I defer? What can I just right now, that's just not going to be a priority in my life. And then I went through and looked at, what can I delete? Like, what's something just does not need to be a part of my life anymore? Like, I do not need to care about this. Let me take it out of my life. And then what can I delegate? As in, what can I give someone else to help me with? And for you, that might look like cleaning your house. You getting a housekeeper, because that's just something that right now you don't have the time to deep clean for 4 hours every week, And it could also look like getting your meals delivered to your house so that you're not thinking about it every day. It could even look like delegating something at work that you've been doing that just really takes up way too much time, and there's a new person that might need a new project to be working on, and you can delegate that to them. And so these are all things that you're going to have to, it's really hard to go through and be like, do I have to do this? How do I have to do this? But it's really important to do, because it helps you create more space in your life to be doing the things that you do want to do. Okay? The fourth P is policies. And policies are basically a sexier way of saying boundaries. I like to call them personal policies, where it's like someone's asks you to go out on a Tuesday night, and your personal policy is that you don't drink Sunday through Tuesday, and you say, sorry, I don't drink Sunday through Tuesday. And they're like, what? Come on, it's so much better. It's a personal policy. That's so much sexier than saying, you are getting in the way of my boundaries right now. Nobody wants to hear that, okay? It's a personal policy. Sorry, I don't. That's a way easier thing for people to digest. And it's way easier for your brain to digest, because it's like, oh yeah, it's a personal policy. I just don't do that. And you just create that identity, and you are now a person who doesn't do that thing. Here's one for me that's really important, is that I have one day a week where I don't do anything, no matter what. And what I've noticed is when my burnout starts to really happen, it's when I'm not letting myself rest at least once a week. And so in the past few weeks before school started, I had 3-ish weeks where I was really sprinting to make some big changes in the back end on the Two Collective business side, as well as prep for our forthcoming launches, all before school started, and I was in the throes of my classes. And I remember even during that time, I said to myself, I'm not going to work on Sundays. And for the first time, I didn't do any work those days, and it didn't matter. And also, I felt rejuvenated to where on Monday I was able to do the things that I needed to do, because I gave myself that space. And it can feel a little nerve-wracking, but What's more nerve-wracking is the idea that one day you're going to lose months of your life because you're going to be so burnt out because you didn't take those Sundays. And so that's why it's so crucial to build in personal policies, is because they are guardrails that help protect your health, your wealth, and your social life, everything that really matters to you, because you are no longer just being reactive to the way that the world works, and you're being proactive about how you decide to show up. And so other personal policies can look like getting 100 grams of protein in a day, or it can be things like whether or not you decide to be on dating apps, or who you decide to surround yourself with, but they are all policies. So I would go through the areas of your life, your work, your mental health, your physical health, and create personal policies. And while you're doing this, it's really important that you do something that I call a capacity check, which is where you add for yourself the bare minimum for what you're able to accomplish, which is what you're able to accomplish on the worst day of your life when everything has gone wrong and you are crying in a puddle because maybe you had a fight with your best friend or your mom or something like that. Like, those are your minimums. And then your maximum is in a great week happened this week, and all 5 days of the week I was able to work out, eat what I meal prepped, and go to work and thrive at work consistently. Whereas your minimums are when you were not feeling it that week. Maybe it's your luteal phase the week before your period, and you know that all you can do that week is probably work out twice a week, and you're going to DoorDash 1 or 2 times. Yeah. Whereas that other week, you can do it all. So you are sort of saving that energy for when you are feeling down. So write your maximum and your minimum capacity out for those areas in your life, and then create your personal policies around that, where it's like, my personal policy is I don't drink Sunday through Tuesday, no matter what, because I know there's always social events, and I'm going to be in a ton of social events during Wednesday through Saturday. It can also be something like personal policy is every quarter I update LinkedIn for what's going on in my life, whether or not I'm looking for a new job, but that's just something that's really important to me and in my career. So go through those areas of your life, your career, your finances, your family, your friends, your relationships, your health, mental and physical. Write out your maximum and minimum capacities for the way you are accomplishing those things. You can usually do this based on writing out everything you do in your life and doing that delete, delegate, defer list. Then go in, write out your personal policies, and write out your minimums and your maximums. And that'll help you have better expectations for your life and what you're able to give and what you're able to receive. And it'll also help you have better expectations for how you are feeling and what you are able to show up as. And the final P is planning. Baby, you need a system. You need a system if you're gonna get shit done, because you can't think of everything from scratch and do it from scratch every single day. And you can't just have a to-do list floating in your mind. You gotta get it out, and you have to get it into a system that works for you. So for me, this looks like translating all of my systems into an app called Basecamp, as opposed to previously I was doing Google Calendar and Google Tasks, but my projects were getting a little bit more in depth than that. So I transferred everything over to Basecamp, where you can write out a project and, connect them all together. Some people like to use Notion. Some people like to use like Asana or that other one, Trello. But you need a project management system for your life where everything's written out, you know what's going on, and you're using this. And it could be a physical one. It could be something you write out in a planner. But whatever it is, you need a system. And something that's also really helped me is when you have systems, this is like ways for you to organize your to-do list and your goals and your accomplishments. But what also is really helpful is when you make a standard operating procedure. So this is something I learned from my consultant, Michelle, as well. They're called SOPs, standard operating procedure, where you write out what you do when you complete a task, and you open that up and follow it every single time you do that task. So for me, it could be for podcasting. Like today, I write out every step I need to do podcasting. I check it off as I go, and that helps me remember things, as opposed to me writing on my to-do list, record a podcast today. That's a million tasks. It's not just one, So now I have a standard operating procedure for how I do that. And that mental load of how I need to get that all done is more clear, and also not all the way there. I'm not relying on my brain cells for it. And so using your calendar and using standard operating procedures for basic things. You could use this at work too, but you could also do it for cleaning your house. I have a standard operating procedure for my weekly cleaning of my apartment, for my daily end of night routine, where it's the 30 minutes before I go to bed, like this is what I'm doing, and the hour in the morning when I wake up. There's standard operating procedures, and that way you have that, mental load of how am I going to get this done off because you've done it before. And you also are feeling a lot more calm when oh, I have a big project, but it's fine. I have it there. I can look at this when I need to. And a final great thing that you can do with planning is habit stacking. So habit stacking is when you're doing doing multiple habits that are good for you all at once. So for me, this looks like at night when I brush my teeth is also when I am laying out my clothes for the next day. And that triggers me to, when I lay my clothes out for the next day, to go pack my bag for the next day, to make sure my lunch is packed for the next day, and then to go, after I brush my teeth, wash my face, do my skincare routine, lay down on my acupressure mat, and finish my night. And so just adding that one little habit of laying out my clothes for the next day while I brush my teeth at night is a game changer, because then I reduce my decision fatigue for the morning. I also am more prepared for the morning because it inspires me to look at my to-do list, because that's how I'll know what I need to wear. And those all just sort of fall into this easy habit, even though it was all triggered by the one thing, which is brushing my teeth, which is just a non-negotiable at night at this point. So with that being said, those are the 4 Ps that have really helped me overcome burnout over the past few months, and that I'm taking with me as I start off this new school year, which hopefully you guys are following along on social as I start my second year. And they're also really, really crucial for preventing burnout. And so that's something we need to do, because we have way too much we need to give this world to be burnt out. You know what I'm saying, girl? So we'll have some journal prompts in the newsletter this week, so make sure you're subscribed on Substack to get those journal prompts about how to prevent burnout and how to do these personal policies, this planning, all written out for you. Sort of your burnout protocol or your anti-burnout protocol will all be in the Substack this week. So if you're not already subscribed, the link is in the show notes, and you can access all of our previous posts once you do subscribe. And this is also a little subtle plug to sign up for the paid version of our Substack, where we will have monthly unfiltered Q&As, monthly extra episode content from our guests, as well as maybe just talking shit with me. And there's also a monthly What I Learned at Wharton newsletter that shares with you the exclusive behind the scenes of everything I'm getting out of my degree, from interesting readings that are really working for me and applicable to life, to just the basic big picture stuff that I've been picking up from this degree. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. And don't forget, you're too smart to not love yourself. See you next week.